Good evening. If you would take this time to turn off your cell phones so that we won't have any interruptions. Tonight, Councilman Fournette is going to lead us in the invocation, and Councilman Jones is going to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
Bow our heads, everybody. We'd like to thank you, Father God, in the name of Jesus, for allowing us to come together tonight to make decisions for our great city, Pascagoula. Lord, we need your approval on all the decisions that we make. Lead us and guide us to doing the right things. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Does any member of the council or administration have amendment to the agenda? Okay, and then I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're going to move on to community recognition. The Mayor's Youth Council. Is there anyone here from the Youth Council? Mayor's Youth Council. Oh, man. Can you tell us your name? What school you go to? What grade you in?
Will Mitchell, I'm gonna go to PHS.
What grade you in?
11.
Will, thanks for coming again. Appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. Always love to see those guys. Will is here in the house. All right, business spotlight. Nerd Juice Bar. Are they here? Okay. Well, we got a video we want to show you about those guys, and you know, they're a great group of folks, and one of the awesome tenants located at Anchor Square downtown. So let's watch the video.
If it'll play.
We think.
Here we go, hang on.
No pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. Sorry. I don't know why it's not playing. Here we go. Can we come back to it? Play it at the end.
I'm gonna play some YouTube videos.
We'll play it at the end.
While we wait.
Sorry.
All right, so all right, so we'll get back to the business spotlight in just a minute when we get it all figured out. We have a proclamation this evening for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Councilman Burrow will present the proclamation. He'll read it, and then I'd like to get a picture up front with everyone too, please.
Whereas domestic violence is the single greatest cause of injury to women in the United States, with an incident occurring every 18 seconds and affecting 1.3 billion women per year. Whereas 24% of adult women and 14% of adult men have been physically assaulted by a partner at some point in their lives. And whereas domestic violence is an epidemic that knows no barriers, affects men and women, all ages, ethnic and religious backgrounds, people in poverty and those of wealth and affluence alike. And whereas intimate partner violence costs us in excess of $5.8 billion nationally each year, $4.1 billion of which is direct medical and mental health services, and has an economic impact from lost productivity amounting to $1.8 billion for American businesses. And whereas the Gulf Coast Center for Nonviolence provided emergency shelter and support services for 2,367 victims of violence and received 15,552 calls to its crisis hotline in 2018, reflecting the severity of this problem within the coastal counties of Mississippi. And whereas the crime of domestic violence violates the dignity, security, privacy, and safety of members of our community in the form of physical, emotional, sexual, and economic abuse. And whereas advocates, professionals, volunteers, and community members concerned with domestic violence will devote the month of October to raising public awareness of this crisis, its causes, effects, interventions, and prevention. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Pascagoula does hereby proclaim October 2019 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and reaffirm our commitment to ending domestic violence within our community. Where we have affixed our seal, the City of Pascagoula, on this, the first day of October 2019, signed Dave Maxwell, Mayor. Thank you very much. I want to take a moment to say that I've had some dealings with Domestic Violence Center with some of the clients that they have, and I want to tell you what a fantastic job these people do day in and day out. They're one of the true superheroes in our community who tend to go under the radar for obvious reasons, but their work is greatly appreciated and has a tremendous impact that literally a lot of us don't appreciate, but we should. So thank you very much for all that you do.
Come on, out here. Get up front.
Two homes, so. One, two, three. Okay, and then hold on. I got it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Appreciate all you do.
I don't know why it's not playing. Played earlier.
All right, so is there a motion to ratify the proclamation? Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now opens up, we're gonna go to the public hearing, but I'm gonna interject right before we go there to announce that, the Great Po' Boy Battle is going on at www.gulfcoastweekend.com. /Po' Boy Battle / and Bozos is in the competition for this. And that's right too. And so we want to encourage everybody to vote for Bozos. Obviously, they're our Pascagoula store or restaurant that we're proud of, and they're in the bracket for the Po' Boys, and you can vote every 8 hours. This is going to be up on all of our social media platforms and our website. GulfCoastWeekend.com. Go check it out. Vote every 8 hours for our great restaurant, Bozos. Po' Boy Battle. Thank you. All right. Now for the public hearing, Mr. Scruggs, please come forward, unless you're ready to play that.
Not yet.
Okay.
Played at the end.
Good, so, Mr. Scruggs, it's your ball.
The application we had not for consideration is one by Joey Talley, which is used on the north side of Inglewood Avenue, which is just west of Chico. I don't believe Mr. Talley is here tonight. If you recall, we postponed this application at the previous meeting because he was not present, and it said he would not be here. So we can move forward with this. Planning board has made a recommendation that I can provide to you, and then we can have a public hearing, and if anybody here is to speak on behalf or for the project or in opposition, they would have that opportunity. That is.
Did he know that this was coming up tonight?
Yeah, I spoke with him on Friday, and he is aware the meeting is going on tonight.
Why is he not here?
I don't know. I expect him to see him here.
Maybe you don't want to go through with it.
When we spoke, he did address some concerns or some questions he had about the buffer requirement. I outlined to him what it was, and from our conversation, I anticipated him to move forward with the application. So, I'm here to present the recommendation of the planning board. And, you know, we have done this before, maybe not this body, but, you know, planning board and city council can act on an application for you, even if the applicant is not present.
Was anybody here to speak against it? Okay. Well, do you want to proceed? Proceed,
Unless
and
the
then
board
we'll-
sees something different.
We're gonna hear these ladies.
Yeah, I think we should proceed. All right. The primary issue with this property is that, the frontage along Eagles Avenue is zoned community commercial, and the river property is zoned MR3. The map, the top right, more or less outlines, what we're looking at. The red box, shows the property in question. It also shows a line that goes down the middle, from the different colors, the pink being, the CC area, and the brown taupe color is more the, MR3. You can see the properties around the little, or 24th, 23rd are all, single-family residential, but in the MR3 zone. The, property has been vacant for a long period of time, and I don't think, Mr. Talley knew this property was split zone when he purchased it. We have had the property before city council, throughout the years, because it had been overgrown, and there were homeless individuals, I think, there was presence of vagrants, occupying the structure on site. So, you know, we dealt with the previous property owner to the point that she decided to sell it. Mr. Talley bought it and is trying to utilize it for a commercial activity, and realized that the rear part of the property was not zoned commercial. As we discussed at the meeting last month, the split zoning of the property is not ideal. It means that one half of your property can be used for one use, and the other portion of your property has to be used for a different use, which makes it pretty hard to utilize that, especially when you consider that the property that is zoned MR3 does not actually have frontage to a public street. So if you were to put it, something back there that was residential in nature and not commercial, you would have to access it, build a road or some other drive to access it. So it really is kind of problematic. The line, in my opinion, was drawn from some of the existing frontages along Ingalls Avenue to the east and to the west. It was just a line that was arbitrarily chosen and drawn, and it looks pretty on the map, but when it splits properties, it does cause problems. So those are some of the issues or reasons for considering the change. You know, Ingalls Avenue is a primary arterial, a lot of traffic, and you can find buildings like Fred's and some of the stuff to the east on Chico, that it does have a commercial nature to it. The one of the issues we have to address is, you know, what impact this will have on the properties to the rear. The UDO provides for a buffer yards that are required, which would require a fence along that back half that would shield the views, and also some vegetative plantings, you know, that would be helpful to make it a little less impactful on the property owner to the north. So, you know, I did talk to Mr. Talley, and I think his intention is to construct an 8-foot fence, one that will, not just a standard 6-foot, so that it would be more of a barrier visually for the property owner to the north.
This plan to be a storage yard,
I'm sorry?
storage. Is that what you're trying to do?
He would like to, I believe, do some RV storage and some,
RV storage.
RV storage, yes, sir, and boat storage.
Well, when we get the titles checked on the property,
Is zoning not something that they check on a title?
No.
It's not? Just curious, I did not know the answer to that. And why or who approved the current use of the property? Is it zoned currently for a 50-foot pile of dirt to be on there? Just out of curiosity. If not, has he been cited or fined for having a 50-foot pile of dirt on there?
No, yes, it's fine.
Because it's kind of, if I lived to the north of that lot, I would be very, very upset.
Donna, the property, as I see on the drawing here that shows, let's call it the north half is MR3 and the bottom half is community commercial. Was that at one time a separate parcel, or has it always been, as far as we can tell, a single parcel that just happened to be bisected by a zoning line?
From what I've seen, and it's not a deep dig, it has all been, one property. All three of these are, I believe, leaps and bounds descriptions that are, entire tracts, and they, not small lots. Which is consistent with the two properties that are immediately east of it, which also go all the way from Ingles to, the next three, level three.
It doesn't seem like an 8-foot fence is going to be a good buffer for whatever is going to go there.
Right, I mean, there is a distance requirement as well, that it's not just the fence, it would require some spacing.
You know, my concern is that little by little, over many years, we're gonna keep changing all these little zoning, we're gonna make all these little zoning changes. And after a little while, the city's gonna start to lose its old character, and we're going to develop a less desirable character in residential neighborhoods. And everything's gonna become industrial.
Well, my concern is that the north half of this park property is clearly not accessible for residential purposes, except coming off of Ingles Avenue. And while I'm somewhat sympathetic to this, I'm concerned that the applicant is not here. One of the things I would like to know is what he intends to do to provide adequate buffers, not just what the minimum requirement is, but what additional buffering could be done to protect the residents who are to the north and to the west of the north part of his property. It's unfortunate he's not here.
So I move that we table this until Mr. Talley can be present. If it's important to him, then he'll show up at the meeting.
We're about cleaning the city up. This is a whole 180 degrees away from what we're trying to accomplish, because that's an eyesore. When I pass by that street, when I'm going down Nichols Avenue, when I see that dirt pile there, it's not good, because what happened later is somebody else, like you saying, basically, what if someone else wants to do the same thing? And we have all this kind of, I guess you say construction or business, to me, it really should be located on the outskirts of our city. I understand Mr. Talley, I know he's trying to make a living, but these people have to live here, man, and that's bad for our city.
There's a motion on the table, either we need a second or it needs to be killed.
Here's a second.
Second.
Any
As far
further
as-
discussion?
Yes, I'm opposed to tabling this. I think that notice has been given to the applicant. We postponed it already due to his absence on one occasion. I think we need a decision tonight. And so I'm opposed to tabling it I don't know why Mr. Talley's not here tonight. So any event, that's why I'm opposed to tabling it. I think the residents deserve a decision tonight.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I have to vote aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right.
Mr. Fournette, to address your question, if I can.
I'm with Killer.
But you don't want to take it?
I mean, no, it doesn't make any sense to me, but I'll tell you if that's what you guys want.
So there's already looked at the table.
One.
Okay, all right, we're good.
It did, yeah, did not table, right, so we're
Still alive.
Right, so, what happened is, he was in the process of trying to do some stuff on the property. We were getting with him on the permitting process. He discovered that the back portion of the property was zoned, MR3. And that's when, he's kind of, the dirt's sitting there. The dirt would ultimately be spread out, and it's not too stored dirt on the property. You know, and of course, whether it be residential, commercial, you know, wherever, the use of dirt on the property is, you know, not an issue. You know, the building sitting out front, he wants to secure it, place it in a certain location, but until the zoning is clarified, he's not sure where the building is going to go. So he is in somewhat limbo with the property, and we are too, trying to determine what needs to happen with it. I believe the building was actually taken from the project he's doing with the downtown baseball parks. He's actually, that building moved out there, and some of that dirt is done. So I mean, he is using it somewhat as a intermittent storage yard for work being done in the city.
Does he have any kind of permit?
Yes.
Okay. So is the permit cover the dirt out there?
I think you've got a land disturbance.
Josh?
I was just saying yes.
Land disturbance permit, which that's covered.
Okay, so he's legal on the dirt pile. Okay. Where is he not legal?
Well, there's some items that are sitting on the north side of that property. I drive by twice a day. I mean, I don't know whether that's legal or not, but, I mean, there are items there in that residential portion.
Right.
I'm just trying to find out if he's doing anything legal or not legal. I mean, I think everything you're saying is that he's legal, but we're in a limbo here. We gotta make a decision, right?
I mean, at present, the property is on MR3, some of that activities on the north side are probably outside of compliance.
Okay, so that's what the planning commission is recommending, is that we rezone that back.
The planning board recommended, the rezoning of the property.
Okay. And what is your recommendation?
I recommended to the planning board a positive rezoning of the property based on the fact that it's a changed neighborhood character and the fact that the property is split zone, which is not consistent with their comprehensive plan.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
You wanted to ask if he was here.
Well, I do. All right, go ahead. You can come on now. Oh, I asked them if they were here for that, so they said yes, so why don't you ladies come up? Been here?
Well, we're gonna present the board with our actual photographs, so it's not so abstract as to what we're talking about.
This is my background.
In the last page, you'll see this is my backyard. It's shared.
I'll give you some more stuff. This is what I see every morning when I come out my door.
So what you see is what we're abstractly talking about, right? My name is Maggie Williams, and I live in the yellow house on the last page. Yes, my name is Maggie Williams, and I live at 3210 Tiny Avenue, which if you look at those pages, is the larger prints. My house is the yellow house on the last page where the logging trucks are parked almost adjacent to my property. And this is Sharon Thomas. She lives, I'm sorry, Johnson, she lives at the other end by where, in front of the pile of dirt that you see.
Johnson or Johnson?
Johnson,
Johnson.
and I live at 3308 Tiny Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
They got your receipt. So the dirt is piled up in the back of your house.
And your house is, I'm assuming, borders on the north side of this property, is that correct? So the dirt is on the northernmost side of Mr. Tattle's property. Is that-
Correct.
Which is a portion, yeah, which is a portion that's not commercial.
Correct.
That he's advising is the mixed residential, which is, and it just so happens, as the gentleman said, that they're a single family home. It just so happens that those are our homes and those are our families.
So, the issue is, I mean, let me ask you this. If he knocked the dirt down, and spread it all over the property, and there was no dirt there,
The issue would still be, so the city, let's start over. When the planning, when we went before the planning board, our concern was, we had never talked to him until that day. He bought the property 18, 19 months ago. All we knew is stuff started happening. We didn't know anything. He told the planning board if he didn't get approved to rezone, that he was threatening to do duplexes or apartment complexes. First of all, how do you come before the board and ask for something, then threaten if you don't get what you want, you're gonna do this? When we all know the element that apartments and duplexes have a propensity to bring. Let's be realistic when we look at the crime rate in our city, right? Most of the crimes that take place in our city, i.e. murders and that kind of stuff, take place in our apartment complexes, car thefts and those kinds of things. So let's be honest. So that was a threat. Well, if I can't do this, I'm gonna do this. Which still no discussion from us. So the dirt is one issue, is the present issue. The other present issue is, it's mixed multi-residential, but he has industrial logging trucks parked adjacent to where I live. Like, I can walk, step over the ditch, and the trucks are there. I have a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old, and I have a lot of kids at my house all the time. It's dangerous, and I'm sure there's nothing in the books that says multi-residential is supposed to store industrial equipment. I'm sure of it. Without even looking at the books, I've got enough common sense to know that that's not there. With reference to this buffer, 20 feet is nothing, because we went out there when we left here. We gave him some grace because he hadn't talked to us, and we asked him to talk to us, and he followed me out to the property, and Sharon came out because she was at home already. And a 20-foot buffer is nothing, and an 8-foot fence means nothing to her. Now, for me, I would be able to see over a little, but she would see everything all day because of the elevation she was required to do. It's much higher than an 8-foot fence. And then he said, the planning board required him to put like foliage, I'm gonna assume like bushes or something in front of it, but that still doesn't do anything for our residential neighborhood.
Who will keep up the maintenance on that?
I mean, you know,
It's in our backyard.
he don't have a timeline, he doesn't have any idea how long this is gonna take. Now, and the gentleman that spoke in his part also didn't tell you that he also plans to put some self-storages, kind of like what's over there by the Bartlett Bayou, like, you know, self-storage, you pay monthly for storage. That part wasn't mentioned. He wants to put self-storage. So and he also wants to put an office on the front and a beauty salon on us. There's a lot going on that he wants to do on this project. He doesn't have a timeline for the project. We haven't seen any plans for the project. Last month when we were here, the people that were trying to do this stuff in DuPont had it all planned out. Like, we could see what it was gonna look like. We have no idea what he's gonna do. There's no timeline. There was just no consideration for the families in that area. We've been homeowners in that area for over 20 years, both of us. And we've raised our children and we plan to continue to do so. We just haven't had any say. And to us, this right now is not conducive to us continuing to raise families and to live peacefully. The demolition that he did was enough, because we're not gonna talk about the rodents and all the animals who lost their habitat as a result. And no, there were never any vagrants living there. I've been there 20 years. I've never seen a homeless person living there.
I've seen and ran out of homeless guy in that place.
I have. The only homeless
Well,
guy
you might-
was
I know, but I'm just saying, I have.
not living.
We had several complaints on the grass growing and trees.
Yeah, the grass probably came from her. That's probably so.
Yeah, and so, we got a call, and I went over there and looked at it, and there was a homeless guy in there, running home.
In 20 years, I mean, it just has never became a problem for us, but this is a problem. This is a problem because it was unbeknownst to us. We had no idea. When we knew anything, we received a letter in the mail saying, hey, this is what I want to do, come and speak if you want to speak. And I rushed from work, she's still up, we're here, he's not here.
Yeah.
Two times in a row. So I mean, like I said, it's just too flimsy, it's too fluid. There's no planning, there's no timeline. We don't know what it, like the pretty screen that everybody else uses to show exactly what their plans look like. We don't have them. So we're just taking a shot in the dark and expecting to, as homeowners, just accept it when we're our rights. What do we have to expect as property owners in the area?
Let me ask you this, because I think, so the dirt's temporary and the trucks are temporary. We get in to move those and all.
And
I'm trying
temporary
to,
is relative.
I'm trying to see if there's any wiggle room on either side. Are you just not interested in anybody doing anything commercially on the property? Or if he were to spread the dirt out, build a whatever, and then put boat storage, are you against that? That's what I'm trying to get at, long term.
We're against anything commercial going on in back
Okay.
because it can't be that important.
On that back end.
Yeah, on our end, on the rezoning and changing it to commercial,
Yeah.
which would allow for this, yes, we're against it.
Ms. Williams, let me play devil's advocate with you for a minute. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's a real problem in trying to use this for a residential. I mean, as I can tell, and I haven't walked the neighborhood, but it's been 2 years since I campaigned, so that's how long it's been since I was on Tiny Avenue. But there's real no access to that from Tiny Avenue. So the access would have to come through Ingalls Avenue. Do you, I mean, it was so vacant, or it was vacant for so long, do you really feel like that it would ever have a legitimate residential use at that point? Would it have to be, in fact, something else in order for that property to do something?
And I'll be glad to answer that.
Sure.
First, this is no affair of mine, because he should have thought about that before he bought it. And you're right, there is no access. But that was one of the things that existed when he bought it. There wasn't any access when he bought it. It wasn't any access when I bought it 20 years ago. And that hadn't changed. So,
I understand.
you know what I'm saying?
I understand, yeah, okay.
So, I mean, you know, do you have anything else?
I want to correct her on one thing. She said we were single family moms that raised our kids in that neighborhood for 20 years. We got up and we went to work every morning to maintain our household so we can stay in the residence.
Even after Katrina.
Even
we
after
built it.
Katrina, we was
And I
there.
bought the lot between us so that we could control who
Live
lived by
there.
us.
And I maintain that lot. I maintain it for her because I have kids. Right now, if my grandkids come over, I have to go outside with them to watch them because it's maybe a 2-foot hole in the back yard where it's nothing but water and mosquitoes there. So I kind of spray that off too because they gonna eventually come in my yard. But I want you all to tell me, what are my rights as a homeowner that I should know about what he allowed to do on that property?
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you right now. I totally agree with you. And I am quite offended that for 2 months, he hasn't shown up, or for 2 times, he hasn't shown up at this meeting. And expects this just to go through. And I'm quite offended that we're expected to push this through, because I don't like it. And I drove back and I took pictures from your house
My house.
view.
I get up every morning.
And I wouldn't like it if this were my house, and I can guarantee you, one of my questions was, would you want to build your new home next to that lot? And I can guarantee you his answer would be no.
Okay, well, what we have to consider though is the way it is zoned now. And I've heard you talk about, you don't like the lot the way it is now because it's not kept up, and I understand that and sympathize with you on that. But there's certain things that he can do right now with that property that we would not have a chance to vote on. So Donovan, correct me if I'm wrong, if he wanted to go build duplexes on that piece of property and make a driveway from Ingalls Avenue, he would be able to do that without our approval?
Right, I mean, and that's what Mr. Kelly spoke of, before, and it even has a report in there from a consultant that indicates that the property is on MR3, which is primarily set up for multifamily housing. That's what your MR3 zone is established for. And I think he referenced a GRPC study that shows that Pascagoula currently has more apartments than we need. I believe these ladies mentioned their concern over what occurs with some multifamily apartment complexes. So in a sense, the rezoning, one of the benefits that was mentioned in my report was that it does eliminate some of the MR3 or multifamily zoning that we have, because I don't think we really need to be encouraging more of what we've got too much of. And that's basically what, I don't care whether you take it as a threat or as frank talk or as just whatever, but if the property is on MR3 it's on a tract of land like this, and it does not have access, chances are it's not going to be subdivided for single-family residential. And if it's not for single-family residential, then about the only thing that can go into MR3 would be some kind of duplexes or multifamily. That's where you are. Now, I will say that if, Mr. Talley spoke of doing, mini storage is not allowed in the CC without coming before this body for special use. So what he may have said to you on site and what our ordinances actually allow may be two different things. RV storage, I don't believe is allowed in the CC zone. I think you could do it in boat storage is allowed in the CC. So there are some things that are allowed and some things that are not allowed.
And that's my point, is I understand that, and I would be in the same boat you guys would be in, is I would not want that dirt behind my house, I wouldn't want the logging truck behind my house. But there's certain things, we're here to vote on a change in the zoning. It actually could benefit you guys, as Mr. Scruggs mentioned, is that, if you changed it to community commercial, then he could not build the duplexes there. But it does allow somebody to use their property for other uses. So I just want everybody to understand that even if we deny this tonight, there's nothing we can do if he goes in there and builds duplexes on that piece of property and not put up a fence.
Will there be a duration on how long it takes for him to put it up? Would this be a 5-year project or 2-year project?
As fast as he can get a permit, as fast as he can build it. I mean, there is no limit for the multifamily or for this site.
For either?
I mean, if he decides to develop this in a manner that is consistent with the regulations, he can come down and pull permits based on a site plan. Rezonings do not require site plans. Rezonings do not require a project in your pocket. I mean, a rezoning says that for some reason, the zoning is either not correct, or there's a change in neighborhood character, or there's some flaw, like we had with the comp plan.
Well, Donovan, it was either the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, I asked, what's the standard for a mistake in zoning? And you basically told me that it amounted to an error in the drawing. Like somebody, so I wanna be very clear, we're not talking in this instance that there was a mistake in the zoning, because obviously that line was drawn very deliberately across this property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying there's a mistake in zoning.
Okay.
That is not what I'm saying.
It may not be optimal, I get that, but we're not arguing, Mr. Talley nor the city is arguing that there's been a mistake in the zoning.
No, nobody's made that argument.
Okay, all right.
Excuse me, you said that are you all against anything that's commercial, pertaining to storage, heavy equipment, apartment complexes? You said everything.
If we have to choose, we would rather families than industrial equipment. Do you?
Well, I think that's what Mr. Tipton was trying to get us to do.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But I
something about the land being available, he owns, something is gonna be there. But I totally agree with this. This is insane.
And we've been looking at that, and that's why I said.
How in the world we ever got this for them? I like to know, how do we get this for this?
And that's what we're saying short time, which is relative, right?
I called the planning board, I
That's
said,
done
look
been
at it
out
when
there
it started.
for over half a year.
So who issued the special permit?
That's what I'm saying, how do we ever get this for? This is
The
ridiculous.
planning, or Donovan's office, Mr. Scruggs' office issued the special permit, so why did we issue the special permit for that to go there?
He does not have a special permit.
Okay, well, how is it sitting there then without a citation having been issued?
We'll address it with you tomorrow, and get it removed. My immediate recollection is that some of the equipment was out there when he was, first improving the site, doing his land clearing permit, that he did get. He, put some dirt on the site, he was removing some trees, he was cleaning the site up, and that's what was happening. And I think some of the equipment has just remained there. So yes,
It looks like a laydown yard. I mean, it's got dirt, it's got
I just
storage,
don't- I don't think I
paint
would-
storage.
The dirt, a lot of that was removed from the front of it, he cut that whole property down.
Right, I mean, yeah, No, the equipment should be removed, and we'll definitely, work with Mr. Talley to have it moved,
And the equipment was
as
all
soon
there.
as we can.
He didn't use that equipment to bring the
Yeah,
dirt
that,
there.
none of that.
All
was
that
used.
dirt that's there, he
Well, he'll
pulled
get
it
it.
out of that hole. It's a big old hole down there. He pulled that
It
dirt
wasn't
up out of
one
that
that
hole.
was used doing the work.
He'll
Those
get it-
logs
he'll
was
get it
used
to
to
take care of
haul
that.
off the logs.
It wasn't the trees there.
Okay.
There were
Now-
trees on the side that were removed.
It was a homeowner's property.
Okay, so my
Yeah,
second
a lot of
question is, why don't we ever request, when people want to do these zoning changes, why don't we request a drawing of what they plan to do? Because if we just blindly approve it, what if they change their mind? And we think they're doing this thing, and then they change their mind and they do something else. Then we've approved this thing,
But
We're not approving a project, we're approving a zoning change.
I realize that.
That's what his office is.
Yeah, but let me speak on this, because, I mean, what you need to understand is, Joey could come in here and show you, a five-star restaurant,
Mhm,
and with pretty trees and everything.
mhm.
And, the minute you rezone that property, it could just toss that drawing in the garbage can and say, I'm going to put up this here that's allowed in the CC zone. A drawing does absolutely zero good for you when in a zoning matter.
Right.
It basically is a sales pitch of what I may want to do if you give me this project. It does not tell you what he is required to do.
Which
Zoning,
is exactly what we're saying. We have no idea what he's going to do. You just said.
no, you have a very good idea of what he's going to
No,
do.
we don't,
Yes,
because you just said he can change his mind.
No, ma'am?
No.
Hang on, let him finish. I know what he's getting at. Go ahead.
What you're allowed to do is what's allowed in the CC zone. That's what you're allowed to do. Not what's on a piece of paper. I mean, you know, when somebody says, can you show me what you're gonna do? It's nothing but a fabrication for the most part. I mean, a good architect can draw you a pretty picture that would make you rezone this tomorrow. But that does not mean he's going to, actually build that.
Okay, I get that, but we really don't know what his intentions are, because I've heard 5 or 6 different things. And
But what you have not heard in my report is what he's going to do there. My report does not get into RV storage or mini warehouses or anything else, because I'm looking at the overall zoning of the property. The property is split zone. It's got a CC on the front, MR3 in the back, multifamily allowed on the north side, commercial on the south side. It is not conducive for redevelopment, and there's change in the area that would push it toward a CC zoning. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at what Joey or
is
Mr.
that
Talley or anybody. No,
allowed in
ma'am.
CC zoning?
The dirt is, yes,
Okay, so that's what I know is there now, and I don't like that. So if that's allowed in CC zoning, then I don't wanna approve
well,
it.
fine, the dirt's not allowed the dirt's also allowed in SFR1, SFR6.
All right, we're getting way out now, so let's do this. Is there anybody here that's speaking for this, in support of this? Okay, so now,
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we deny the zoning application for the parcels located on the north side of Ingles Avenue between 22nd Street and Chico.
Second.
I want to explain
Yeah.
why.
any further discussion?
I want to explain why. First of all, as you pointed out, ladies, it's very concerning that Mr. Talley is not here. I'm very sympathetic to the application, because I don't think that it really has a residential use. And I agree with Mr. Tipton's concerns. I think, quite frankly, in the long run, you may, in fact, benefit from it being something beyond or something different than multifamily residential. But having said that, he's not here. He's not here to assure us or assure you of what his intentions are, whether they're binding upon him or not. Certainly, we could have put some conditions as far as the buffer that would provide some protection to your property. Right now, we don't have any of that. Second of all, the legal standard for this is that there has to be a mistake in the original zoning, which Mr. Scruggs has assured us is not the case, or that there is a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood. And the only changes that I can see in the character of the neighborhood come from Mr. Talley himself. This property was vacant for at least 25 years. There's been no change, beyond as far as residential character of the surroundings of this. That area has been very much the same in my lifetime, and certainly in the time that I've been a resident of Ward 3. So I don't see a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood with this. Whatever changes have happened have been extremely recent and are due to the current owner. So that's the reason why I'll vote for the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any opposed?
Any opposed, too?
Karen, you got that?
April.
All right. The, next item on the agenda, you wanna go to this, Mayor, with the,
Yeah.
the property here?
Up on road? Yeah.
You just jump in, or you wanna?
Just jump.
Okay.
Both here.
All right, 1204 Telephone Road. I think most of you are familiar with this property. It's the triangle property that's across the street from Wayne Lee's. Once I came to speak on it, it's, the problem we have with this property is that, tax sale property years ago, and the owner will basically let it go 2 or 3 years not paying taxes. And then the state will get a claim on it or lien on it. And once the state gets a claim on it or back taxes, then we cannot do anything with it. So we've had resolution on the past, and we've cleaned it the past. But current state right now, we've been basically waiting for the taxes to be redeemed so that we can go in and actually go through this process. The owner is very non-responsive as far as getting anything done, and this is the current state of the property. So I ask that you adopt a resolution that allows us to go in there and cut this property.
Is there anybody here to speak in regard to this property? All right.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion that we declare the property located at 1204 Telephone Road to be a public mess.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next.
1408 Kenneth. This property is located just north of the Waffle House, and to the east of Marie, between Marie and North Market. This is the house. From what we can tell, it's got windows that have been left open, windows that are not present, you've got roof damage. The house has not been lived in for quite some time. It is our recommendation that based on the condition of the home, state of disrepair, that we move forward with the demolition of the property.
All right, is there anyone here to speak on this property, Kenneth Avenue? Okay. I'm always looking at you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we declare the property located at 1408 Kenneth Avenue to be a public mess.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? I'll look at Tim the next time, he'll step up. All right,
4402 Market Street. I believe it's the one that's been on somebody's list for quite some time. It is north of Guinea. I guess it's the rear structure on the property that was damaged by fire. The property itself, the pictures don't show it well, but also has fire damage as well. As you can see the roof structure there too.
the wall fell in.
Right. This property, I can't, there's a shadow of the wall. But this property is in disrepair, and it should have been brought to you sooner than now, but here it is, and it's our recommendation this property be declared public menace and the structure removed and the lot cleaned.
Is there anyone here to speak on that property? I make a motion that we declare 4402 Market Street as a public menace.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next one, 4421.
This is also located on Market Street. It is just north of this particular site, the one we just addressed. And this house has been vacant for a number of years, and I talked to code enforcement this morning, and they indicated that the building does need to be removed. There is roof failures that are in the property that allow that to, the water to seep in and destroy the integrity of the roof and the house. So,
Let's go, is anybody doing any repair work,
no,
looks like on no windows, the next new side?
no, so there has been no permits pulled on this property. It has been one that we've dealt with for a number of years now. And it is our recommendation that the house be taken down for a lot cleaned.
Is there anyone here to speak on this property? Okay, I make a motion that we declare 4421 Market Street public menace.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Mr. Scruggs, appreciate you. Next on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Going once? Going twice?
Approve the consent agenda. This is just a minor point for me to assistant city manager and the city manager, that I know that the ordinance changes dealt with the removal of the gas, or references to the gas service that we no longer provide. Just, I would ask in the future if we could, if these are being done in Word, it should be fairly simple to, show what's being stricken out or removed, or what's being added in. If that could be done in future ordinance changes, I would greatly appreciate it.
We can do that, and I'll make sure Ms. Kenny's office, the clerk's office, is up on that.
Thank you.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Amen. All right, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City manager? Assistant city manager, claims docket. Okay,
Mr. Mayor, move we approve the claims docket.
any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so now we're going into executive session. We're gonna entertain a motion to do that and close this session for that.
Video to play.
Mr. Mayor, move we go into a closed session to determine whether or not grounds exist for an executive session.
Any further discussion? All
I
in
think
favor?
Caroline may want to do her business file.
I was gonna see if I can try and get it to play.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Can I attempt, or y'all already?
You ready?
Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up on YouTube. Sorry, intermission.
Got a motion.
Sorry.
Just do it next meeting.
Yes,
Okay,
next meeting.
we'll do both next time,
Okay,
sorry.
so I got a motion, second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?